Good morning everyone and welcome to the Tuesday Club. I'm Moira Stiles and I'm the President of the Otago Settlers Association. I always say that because I think it's nice to know who the person is. Now if any of you aren't members and you'd like to join, once again you can join at the front desk. And I thought I'd show you some retro. George bought us some chocolates today. Do you remember Buzz Bars? When I was a kid we used to put them in the freezer and have them. And Jan was just telling me we were thinking of the other icon, which is toasty pies. Remember those? The ones with the coconut that were the same kind of thing. It's all lovely to have those reps. I'm going to have mine later. Now, what I was going to also say, our midwinter function is this Sunday, and if you haven't already registered, please register with Jude at this event. And it's going to be Sean Brosnan, the creator at Toitū, and he's going to talk about the History Prize. And in case you don't know, we give $5,000 a year, us, the society, to the top university student in the history department second year, and they have a summer internship at Toitū and they do special projects each year, so it's really, really good and they've done some amazing work. So we're going to get some feedback. I think we should since we're giving money. But anyway, on to today's Tuesday Club. And as you see here, the Tapestry Trust in New Zealand, and it's going to be a stitch on time. And we're lucky to have Jan Letts, who's a local woman, she told me. And she's going to tell us about the 100 stories of New Zealand they've been doing in tapestries. And these tapestries are going to be on display for 2 weeks with the Embroidery Guild's annual exhibition down at the Art Society just down the road. So that opens on Saturday and we're closed on Mondays, but do go and have a look. So welcome, Jan.
Thank you, Moira. Moira, it's lovely to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about one of my babies, I call it. I've been a member of this trust now. Since 2018, but not at the beginning. So I think that the name of the trust and the fact that it was started needs to be outlined by, I better learn how to use this kind of thing. There we go. So I'm starting with a local businessman, Fred Haslam, who had been viewing the Bayou tapestries and other tapestries on an overseas tour. He returned to Dunedin and from his overseas trips, and where they'd viewed all these tapestries. But the most important fact was that the Bayou tapestry housed in the museum in France was one of his favourites. It's a 70-metre long tapestry, and I'm sure some of you have been to see it, I haven't. 70-metre long, telling the story of the conquest of England in 1066. It contains 600 characters, 500 animals of all kinds, 50 trees illustrated all over the entire length of the tapestry. And here it is put into one square block. A bit hard to see that, but apparently you can get t-shirts and all sorts of things over there that have got this on it. But however, when Fred and Doreen returned to New Zealand, Doreen his wife, Fred kept talking about this amazing tapestry, and he asked his wife Doreen, was there something like this in Dunedin? There should be something like this in New Zealand. Is there something like this in New Zealand? And he went on at great length. Eventually, worn down with these questions, his wife Doreen finally said, stop talking about it and do something. So he did. He got out and began his search for people that would be able to cover and do what was needed. And so he set up a foundation trust board with chairperson Barry Clark, Fred Haslam himself, secretary and trustee Jeanette Trotman, who was president of the Embroiderers Guild in Dunedin, Otago Embroiderers Guild, trustees Margaret Erskine, president of ANZAC at the time, that's the Association of New Zealand Embroiderers Guild, Margaret Kennedy, past president of the Embroiderers Guild here in Dunedin, and Susan Swigman, president of the Otago Settlers Association. So once he'd gathered these people together, all interested in this project, he then decided that he'd better get searching for a lot of other things. But the foundation was formed, and he was very happy to have people who were stitchers, people who were fundraisers, one of the most important things of anything like this, and began having regular meetings. Now, early meetings were held in the premises of Clark Craw and Partner, now known as Moore Markham's, I think that's the name for it now, and the initial meetings where they decided what sort of things that they should have as tapestries. The project, which was called The History of New Zealand in Stitch, the University of Otago History Department was approached and provided 123 titles for consideration, which were narrowed down later on and joined together in some cases to approximately 100. Advice was sought on suitable materials to be used, and I have a piece here because a lot had to be considered. There's your history bit, whoops. And a lot had to be considered as what was suitable and what would be long-term and last for a long time. So finally, the conservationist that was approached said that wool was the best option for long-term life, and so that's quite an important thing, and wool had to be acquired. So, and of course, they had to be these special sheep called grey, producing grey wool, which is entirely suitable, and you can see it gives the natural colour. And so these lovely sheep, they look good, don't they? They were all shorn, poor things, I hope it wasn't winter, and produced this kind of mix of fleece. Now this mix of fleece was then sent to the Milton Mill from Wellington, where Wairarapa is where these sheep are housed, and sent to Milton Woolen Mill to be spun. And there we have the Milton Woolen Mill, no longer functioning, hasn't functioned for a while, and they spun up the wool there and with these old machines. And then the mill to actually weave the wool, Stansborough Mill, Lower Hutt in Wellington, which is considered a hidden treasure as a tourist attraction ever since 2015. Some of the original machinery dating as far back to the 1890s from Petone has been used and is still in use today. The woolen mill in Stansborough has also, whoopsie, get my notes right. So that was part of the research, and that was the choice, and that was where they were going to make the fabric. In all of this time, the most needed search was, of course, taking place, and that's the funding to support this project. A number of people and a number of groups and donations were received of $5,000, building up a starting fund so that these could all be produced and be ready to go. The wool, when it was woven, is completely enough for 100 panels. They're quite big, as you can see, and the wool is very fine, beautiful really, lovely and fine, and certainly come and have a look at it. This is one that's been made ready to have the picture drawn on it. The Stansborough Mill is, as mentioned before, is based in Lower Hutt, Wellington, and it's where the fabric for weaving was done. The Stansborough Woolen Mill is well known, as I said, as a tourist because it has a museum. Some of the machinery is, of course, the old machinery from old mills is still in use. And it's well known, and it has developed and continues to do things that we probably don't think about until we realise some of this very old machinery is that they make costumes for things like the Lord of the Rings. Woolen costumes that in that period of those films that are set in looked like this and were made of wool. So that's where some of those came from. And ours, of course, for this job. Now, ANZEC is called the Association of New Zealand Embroiderers Guilds, and they support this project, and we're very delighted to have that. And Fred, of course, realised that embroiderers were necessary and that that would be the place to go. He approached Jeanette Trotman at the time, and he asked her, she was sitting on at an exhibition of our biennial stitching exhibition, and he asked her what did she know about stitching and how would he find stitches, and got her onto the group to do the organising. And of course we do have other stitches that are on the trust now. I wasn't on it at that stage, but I did enjoy stitching on all of the tapestries that the Dunedin group have done. But at the mill, some of the machinery that's still in use, it's really very old, but produces beautiful materials. At the ANZEC, as I said, the ANZEC, which is Association of New Zealand Embroiderers Guild, they providing the stitches, and then it was onto the equipment. These frames were built so that they could be folded up and transported. The material is attached to over the top of it, as you can see up on the top. Oh, I've got one of these things apparently. Oh, mind you, I don't know how to use it. Oh no, never mind. The top one, which is opened out, so that they could be transported from where they were being stitched. And I'm told that with them like this, oh, actually, if I show you the next picture, you'll see that that's how they look. That's how they go out to the people. Once the drawing's been put on it, I just found this one which had a complete set of what happens when they go out. They're on that frame. Frame folds in half, goes in the bag, the legs go into another bag, and you can transport it to wherever you want. Now it's heavy and it's a bit of an issue, and but that's how it's done around the place, where people take it from house to house or guild rooms to guild rooms to make the project. To get started, the first panel. This one shows Alex Gilks drawing the first panel. The very first panel was a settlement of Otago, and it was at the launch of this that the first stitches were put in. The launch was held here, and the first stitches went into that. Unfortunately, Fred Haslam had passed away, and he didn't see his baby or his project underway. But his wife was there, and she and his sons put the first stitches in. Of the settlement of Otago. And as you can see where the stitches are, a little bit of black thread there, each of the tapestries are outlined in this black thread as they put the stitches in where they chose, and those are actually marked, and I'll show you that in a moment, because we felt that it was important as a starter, as the family of the man who had a passion and got this movement underway, should be noted and be shown. So that is the drawing. That's how we receive them, as stitches. We receive a drawing which is finally okayed by both the stitches and the trustee members. It gets drawn onto the fabric, and it's that we use for a colour idea, although they do like us to use as much imagination as we can. So that just shows you that it's basic. So any colour that you put into it is, and here's some of us sitting around stitching this panels. It's interesting, we can get 6 people around it, that's all. But when we get to the middle, we've got problems. Our arms are not long enough. And I have to say that in the many, many early days, children or small people were put on the floor underneath a frame like that, and the needle would come down, they'd grab it and they'd push it back up again. That would have been useful because we can't reach the middle. So the process is we have to take it off the frame and try and work it without drawing up the fabric or doing it too tight on our knees somewhere else. And that's how we've done it in the past, and we still do. Now this shows you, I put a ring round it. And that's how we marked the part that was the start, and that's the finished article. Lots of different stitches used. We just have to use our imagination to try and fill areas, because they are quite large, some of them, to put a bit of colour in it, and to depict people if their faces are on it, so that they actually are slightly recognisable. It's not always easy. Moving on to our next one. This is one of my favourites, and of course I have it here today to see the finished article and what came out to us, because this is another one that we did in Dunedin here, and they are being done over New Zealand, but we have been really enjoying stitching them, and by now we were moving ourselves into a wonderful venue here in the foyer, wonderful light, lots of people coming to have a look, happy for us to be able to tell people a bit about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and a little bit about the Tapestry Trust and its history. So little ideas put around the original drawing so that you could get colours right, and also, you know, sort of just some ideas about, for instance, Shell, who happens to be wearing a hat. I can't think why. But anyway, so here we are with this panel. Now I've shown it like this because I have a great time, and we have these out on display while we're stitching the panel here. We have the ones that we've worked on, and the little car. If there's a group of children, the first thing I want to tell them is, go and see if you can find this car, because it's here, down here. That's why this is such a great one to have on display. Now there is a story about the car. The car belonged to Barry Clark, our first chairperson. It was his pride and joy. He loved that car. And when he saw us stitching on this particular panel, which had been drawn up, and I think at the time we were sitting at I think it was the Scottish diaspora one, but sometimes we were invited to sit and be there just to help with the people who are presenting it, and stitch, which is often asked of us. And so we were stitching this one at another display that was down in the bullnose, I think they call it. Is that right? Bullnose? Barry saw us stitching it, and he saw that his car was very proud and very pleased to see his car had been drawn on it. And so he said, Anne Jackery Newell, one of our stitchers, was showing him it. He called in to see it, and he said, oh. So he got his car, went away, got his car, drove it up to the window at the bullnose. He said, this is just so you get the colour right. And all the details accurate. And so the right number plate, Anne was determined that that would happen, and it was her part of the tapestry that she did, because he had said, please get everything right. So there was a lot of wool and bits and pieces out trying to find the right coloured wool to match his car. I always thought that was such a lovely story. That was our second tapestry, and I'm just showing you those because we have completed 5, and that's quite a record at the moment, but we love stitching where we are, and that's something we want to keep getting another title drawn up so that we can be out there to stitch, because it's such a great place to stitch, and we really appreciate the fact that we can leave it in the cupboard here and not have to cart it all over the place, so we can leave it. But our third one was the settlement of, was the University of Otago, the first university in New Zealand. And we had many firsts in New Zealand. As I said, I didn't mention that the Automobile Association one, it was the founding company that developed here, was the Automobile Association, and was founded here. This was the first university. At the time of the university panel, prior to that, we took particular notice of the fact that we had a bit of a deadline for this one as well. They were having a 150th anniversary, and so we all stitched very quickly and produced this one. And it was on display. Jeanette Trotman and myself, we sat with it at various venues during the conference for the 150th, and to let them see that what our interpretation, or our artist's interpretation of the university from the beginnings to now. So that's one of our favourite ones, and we had lots of fun with that one too. When that was finished, we were on the lookout. Unfortunately, the next panel wasn't meant to be ours. It had been requested from somewhere in the North Island, from a guild, and so the drawings were done. They were all sent up there and passed by us for the electricity development, or the demand for electricity and what it's produced. This panel, unfortunately, they were unable to stitch it at the time. Things happen, circumstances change, and we were very pleased because we had another tapestry to do, and so that's one of ours. But we feel we've got a lot of this stuff, so doesn't have to be locally stitching ideas or anything like that, but that one was great fun to do as well. Challenged because we've always used wool fabric, woolen threads, and as on the car, we had to put a bit of silver in there. Had to be authentic, you know. And then this one, well, power lines don't look too good if they're woolly. So here's a group of them. We keep photographing people at work. Shirley, Jeanette, Margaret and Judy, some of our 6 stitches, hard at work, and that's the finished article. Sometimes the colours come up a bit strange when you're taking photographs. Most of these photographs have been taken by Jeanette Trotman's husband, Clive, and he's given me access to them. And but we did have some power lines, but we found something that would suit, but the rest of it's stitched in wool, as are most of them. So just to be on a theme about us as Dunedin stitchers, the next one that came up was at the end of last year, or Wellington had been looking at doing it, but because of the conference and everything, they'd set it in place, but they had a conference up there 2 years ago, and they decided that each time that it was awkward, but we needed one, so what a shame they didn't. Yeah, but we don't tell them that. So our new artist and Jackery Newell took on the challenge. The trustees did the research, and that's what we have to do, research the topic and come up with ideas, things to draw. And this is her interpretation of all of the things that she found. So I know I'm probably going on about just a group of one, and there are lots of others, but I do know that you've been told that there's an exhibition of our tapestries, and I've kept this one back so I could show you, and I've got to take it over there as soon as I've finished, so that they can hang it and complete it, ready for our opening over there, which is on Thursday evening, official opening. So there's the ideas about Wellington. And what is discussed often as we're sitting round, apart from trying to put the world to rights, and they don't listen. It's really worrying. But anyway, we keep trying. We keep coming up with wonderful ideas, not always probably suitable, but we keep trying. And that's what we do while we stitch. We stitch and chat, and which is wonderful to do. And I love it, a couple of hours every fortnight at the moment. So this was this. This was November last year. And of course Anne, who's also convener of the Embroiderers Biennial Embroiderers Conference, which is happening as of Saturday, starting Saturday. She's the convener. It's got to be ready. It's got to be finished. It's got to be on display. Oh, she almost cracked the whip over the top of us. She really did. But guess what? We did it. We had it finished in time for 3 weeks ago. I gave it to, we laced it, and this is a picture of the processes. We have to pad it with, we have to back it with this type of conservation board. Then we have to pad it with bamboo padding, and that's attached. Then we lace it, we turn it over and we lace it very tightly all the way across. After we've pinned around to get the measurements all correct, takes ages, and then lace it all up and pull it tight. And so that's the processes that that happen. But that's Jeanette and I doing the final bit of that. So this last one, the Wellington one, we had that one to do, and we'd just received the one, acclimatisation one from Eastern Southland, and so now that means 2 more are on the display. The one that they were both taken to give at our last one, not our last meeting, last normal meeting, to be taken for framing. Margaret Erskine, who is our trustee, she lives in Gore, and her husband is the person who frames them. So she puts the backing on them. You'll see it's got not just like that, it's calico put over, she puts that on it, and her husband frames them so that they're all the same and all the same dimensions. They're quite large, and so we need a lot of space to hang them. But, so that's the processes. They are sometimes given at conferences, and this was one of the conferences where we got 3 that had been completed and had to go through the process. Once again, they're all on display. So just a quick rundown. We start with an initial drawing, and then we put the colour on. We get the colour, but the artist puts the colour on it. And that's what goes to the people with the wool and the frame and all those bits and pieces that are necessary. And then they come up with that. So the more colour you can put in something, the better, but some things it's a bit limiting because of what it is. And at the exhibition that they held, I was having 26, I was told it was 27, but I believe it's 26. We do have one that's on the frame that's still being worked on. We thought it was important to bring that in and put it in there because it's not ready. They didn't have it ready. That's not a problem. It's there and people can see actually what has to happen. And also appreciate when you see the frame on a frame like that, you can appreciate the difficulty of getting into the middle. And they were saying yesterday when they delivered it, when we were hanging them, that they were very worried about how they were going to get into the centre, and that they thought they shouldn't take it off the frame, and we said that's what you have to do because you just can't reach the centre, otherwise our arms are just not long enough. I'm just trying to think. Normally that they take about 2 to say even 4 years to be completed. It's not something that we can do all the time. It's handed around sometimes in places so that different stitchers get a chance to have a go. The idea and the story is put onto a piece of paper, and every time, and when we display them, they have a little A4 plaque which has what the story is, just a bit of background, and who stitched it. Because we think it's really important that people who stitch them have have word about what it is and who stitched it. The first one, the Otago one, I'll go back to that because that's got a list that's so long. It's fairly incredible because we were invited by a cruise ship group coming through it was an embroiderer's cruise ship. They always sit on there and stitch and embroidery. It sounds fascinating to me. But we were asked, would we do a display for them of stitching? So we got a room at St Paul's Cathedral and we took our first one, the Otago one, along as an example, and we put our own stitching all around, you know, all the members of our guild put pieces in for it for display. They came along and they were fascinated by half a dozen of us sitting around this tapestry and stitching it, and someone said, "You'd like to put a stitch in, wouldn't you?" Oh, we couldn't get them away. They had a ball, and we had such a long list of stitches because I think everyone on the cruise ship who'd come to that display put a stitch or two in, and we put their name on the list. So that goes down in history but that's the process. The first exhibition we did have of what was completed at the time was 16 of them. That was in Gore, but insurance purposes won't allow us to transport them around the country any more than 4 of them. They're too expensive. The actual cost has been sorted. It's $5,000 per panel, and that's taking in all the wool, all of the framing, not the time, that's volunteer, but all of the expenses, the insurance, and of course ultimately that will change if we have a permanent residence or place that we can have them hanging so that people can see them at any time instead of just the occasional conference like we've got here, but also here being the only place that we can have all of them on display. We do send them to biennial conferences, which are all around New Zealand. The last one was in Tauranga, and they have 4. We send 4. They choose their own one if they've done one, and any other ones, just so it can be advertised. So that's quite useful to know that we have to keep the funding up because we can't transport them and because they cost so much. That was the other cost thing involved. We used to send 4 panels for $350 to wherever it was going. They send it back, the same price. Last one, $690 each way. So expenses, we cover that cost, but it gets a bit hard. These are all going to be on display as we have been told, and they'll be there from the Friday through for 2 weeks, and so I hope you can take the opportunity to see these. I've got 27 there, but just as a quick little taste and maybe tempting you to take time to find it, that's the Christchurch panel, and this one was done by South Otago people, the Otago Daily Times panel, funded by Sir Julian. He funded it for us. So that's beautiful. I mean, I love them all. And the recent one, the climatisation, that's the one that we've just received from Eastern Southland. It's beautiful. And it's quite different, and it's lovely. And they are all exactly the same size, 1 metre by 67 centimetres, I think it's the correct number. And so we haven't got a list of names for that one yet, but these are the ladies that have stitched that acclimatisation one. And I quite like the idea of, I took a few photos of the different parts of it to see the detail. It's rather good. So I just want to thank you. The trustees are grateful to Toitū, the Settlers Museum, for the use of the OSA room for our trustee meetings and at the moment the storage of all the panels. I have to say that if you're having to use that room, we are taking up an awful lot of space. And so when somebody comes up with a venue that we can display them permanently, you might get your room back. The Otago Stitchers are also very grateful, as I said before, for the use of being able to, and actually we're very happy to come here because the foyer is a wonderful place to stitch. It's bright and it's an excellent light. We enjoy the project and we love telling tourists and visitors here. We have a lot of locals that come back to see whether we've made any progress over the time. Initially it was during tourist time, boats time, but the locals are just as interested too, I think, just to see if they see us there, they like to come in. So we come, this year it's once a fortnight, and every second week we could call it, and we stitch, and sometimes we share the space with the spinners and weavers, which is quite appropriate because it's wool. And so, as I said, ideally we'd like to have somewhere else that we could put them, somewhere permanent, somewhere where all the frames and the fabric and the bamboo and all of the other things that go with it to store. But I'll just conclude with that and say, I hope you get a chance to go and visit them and see them. You'll also have an opportunity to visit some amazing stitching that's come from all over New Zealand on display and have been judged, and so you'll see some amazing work. But you do so on that tapestry. People say, what stitches do you use? Well, you have to use your imagination. Some of them are probably not named, but if you open a book of stitches, there's thousands of choices. So what's another one? So thank you for your time. I hope I've covered it and you've seen something about our trust. The trust members just been increased by two new members, 2 new trustees, and the work goes on. And as I said, grateful that we can use the place that you people are involved with. So thank you.
That was lovely, and I'll definitely go and have a look quite a few times. Now, any questions?
Yes. And the latest artist, who are the other artists?
Oh, I didn't read them out, did I? That teaches me not to have the notes on there because I hadn't thought about that. But we've had Alex Giltz, Tessa and Daniel, and Platley, I think their name is. They were short-term ones. Georgina Young has been a long time, she's been the artist most of the time that I've been involved. She's just had to retire as having a permanent job, and it is a big commitment because you've been given a whole lot of facts to do, and in fact Georgina used to do an awful lot of research herself, and so her time was taken up well and truly. And then there's the process of drawing up something that will be agreed to by the trustees and the stitchers, because it's important that they want and like what they see. And then there's the put onto the material, as I said. This panel, it has these panels are surrounded in canvas to be stapled onto the boards, the frames. And but to do this, you have to. Anne, our latest artist, she's a dressmaker, so she's got one of these huge tables, and it's, she's now got a data projector that she's got on her roof, and she projects it down onto the fabric, and then draws it with a special pen. So it takes quite a lot of doing, and to get it, you've got to have the lines on the actual grain of the fabric. Otherwise, some of them you'll see looks a wee bit kinky. So that process is quite long. And Anne is our latest artist. We're always happy to have artists who have ideas, and as a trust we're looking at all sorts of options, wondering whether school senior students who have to do some special project might consider taking a title and drawing it up and getting it passed by whoever's going to stitch it and the trust, and I'm sure that would be a really good project for them to do for some of their, I don't know, testing and things that they have to do. So those are all sorts of options that we look at. But at the moment it's Anne, and we are very keen to get another project so we can get back to here. At the moment we're having our 5 panels now, that'll be on display out at the front while we stitch, but it will be stitching just anything else that we can find until we've got another panel. Yes?
So it starts on Thursday night. Can you give me more information about when we can go look at it and whereabouts it's located for us to look at, the hours that it's open for, and
it's being displayed in the railway station at the Arts Centre area. We've got 2 rooms that we've been allocated. They are hung, we put them up yesterday. And the exhibition for the Embroiderers Guild is actually the other part of it, so they're all there. And I think the place is open from 9:30 till 4.
It's actually open every day of the week except Mondays. It's open 10 till 4, except on Saturdays it's open 9:30 to 3:30, and it's free entry. And I understand the Embroiderers Guild's works are for sale. So you're basically going to the railway station, going upstairs. As soon as you get to the stairs, you'll see the gallery.
And how many days is it available for us to look at there?
Our one is on for 2 weeks, and I understand it's possible that the embroiderers one will be as long as that too. That's my understanding, but you know, that could change. I think it's on for a bit longer, but they're both together, which is convenient, and they're free to go into. So
it opens to the public on Saturday for 2 weeks, but that is the special openings on the Thursday for the tapestries and the Fridays for the Embroiderers Guild at night.
Yes, yes. So I think that's okay. Hello? Yes?
How many panels in total have been completed?
26. They take time, a lot of time. There's still some working, so yeah, it's fine. Hello?
Hello, you said the exhibition was coming up. Is it next week? And is it in the Toitū brochure, or is it going to be in the ODT advertising?
I believe the ODT is there for the openings of both events.
And the date, those dates again?
Well, this is coming Thursday, and the other one is the Friday.
Okay.
That's for the other exhibition, which is part of it. Those items are actually always for sale too. Sure. So if anybody finds something that's particularly important to them, that's for them. ANZAC is a supporter of the Tapestry Trust project, simply because they probably were approached because that's the place that you can find out where to get stitches and where to send information about the titles. The titles are on the website, which unfortunately has proven to be rather challenging, and but the titles are still there, and we're at the process of trying to find a suitable website person to have it secure enough that we can actually keep adding things, because unfortunately it got blocked somehow. We're not quite sure how. I'm not quite sure. Technology's not my thing. And we haven't been able to put them all on past the 16 that were on first display. Some people, somehow or other, the password or something was lost, and so now it's been copied, but we can't access it at all. But it is there, and so now we have to start afresh. So more expense while we find somewhere and get someone to set it up, so that that doesn't happen again, because I think that some of the works are so beautiful. It's such a shame that they can't be on display, and that people can't go and have a look at it. But we are working on that at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Where do you get your funds from?
We have to apply to any funding source. Initially, I believe people heard about it and donated. As I said, there were $5,000 donations apparently at the start of the process. We're a charitable trust, and we put applications in, These days, that's much more challenging. The situation, financially speaking, everywhere in the world, I think, makes that a real challenge. So any sort of donation is gratefully received, and also the amount doesn't matter, and because really anything is helpful, because all those expenses add up.
Do you have a way that people can make donations or a container at the expedition that people could donate to if they'd like to?
Well, I haven't checked with that. I plan to ask because I thought of that. We're not able to ask the people here personally, and we hope that any of the people that take one on realise that there's a $5,000 cost for the particular one that they're doing. They're all the same, priced at the same, so to speak, and that they may be able to find locally some kind of source. And we hope that that's suggested, and we try on their behalf too, if an application coming directly from us would be helpful. One of the ones that was recently, or probably a year or so ago now, was asked for to go on display and was taken up to the area. I'm not sure whether it was, I can't remember now, but there was a bank who'd given them some funding, and they were having a particular board meeting, and they knew that it was finished, and they asked the stitchers of it, could they have it, so that they could show it as somewhere they'd given some money to from a bank. So it was very quickly got up there for them to show, and so that they could have it at their board meeting, and that their board members could see what that donation funding went to. So that's another idea, but we're always trying to think of ideas and find sources of funding to keep the project going. It was Fred's passion, but it's become a number of other people's as well. Like to see it keep going. The history of New Zealand and Stitch doesn't look like the Bayou Tapestries, not going to look like that, but it is our project, and so yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jan. It's a real treasure to have these, and I think that it'll be something in the future we'll really want to go and look at. And I think it's really great that you brought one along today, and I should definitely go and have a look at it and look at all the stitches. So thank you very much.